When we sleep, where do we really go? Every night, we close our eyes, surrender our bodies to stillness, and dive into a parallel reality that we cannot control, and sometimes cannot even remember. Time seems to dissolve. The laws of logic bend. We are taken to places we've never been, live lives we didn't choose, feel things deeply that we hardly dare to feel while awake. And yet, when we wake up, we call it just a dream. But what if it's not just? What if dreams are actually a silent mirror reflecting what we most try to hide from ourselves? What if, while the body rests, the mind doesn't merely wander, but reveals? Since the dawn of humanity, dreams have been seen as portals to the invisible, messages from the gods, omens of destiny, or encounters with hidden dimensions. Today, with the advances of neuroscience and deep psychology, we know more about what happens in the brain during sleep. But the essence of the mystery remains intact. Because no matter how much we map neural circuits or measure brain waves, we still can't explain why certain dreams transform us. Why some frighten us so deeply? Why others heal? The journey we now propose is not merely a technical explanation. It is a passage through the nature of the human soul. A dive into the space between the visible and the invisible, between what we know of ourselves and what our dreams insist on showing us. What if dreams are not random leftovers from the day, but revelations of who we truly are? What if what we call reality is only one state of consciousness, among many? Today, we invite you to look within, to listen to what arises when silence settles in, to remember that perhaps who you think you are is only a part of who you truly are. Because the waking self falls asleep, but the true self may just be starting to dream. For centuries, dreaming belonged to the realm of mysticism, the unexplained, the supernatural. But in recent decades, science has ventured into this nocturnal kingdom, trying to understand, with measurements and machines, what really happens in our minds when we fall asleep. The truth? Far from resting, the brain transforms into an electric theater where vivid, intense, and often surreal scenes are staged. To understand this spectacle, we must first get to know the stage, the sleep cycle. Our sleep isn't uniform, it's divided into stages. First, we enter NREM sleep, non-rapid eye movement, which ranges from light dozing to deep sleep. It is during this phase that the body regenerates, the immune system strengthens, and memory begins to consolidate. But it's when we enter REM sleep, rapid eye movement, that the magic intensifies. Here, the eyes move beneath the eyelids as if following invisible scenes. The brain enters an electrical activity state nearly as intense as wakefulness. It is in this state that most vivid dreams occur. During REM sleep, a curious and paradoxical activation happens in the brain. The limbic system, responsible for emotions, lights up like a beacon. That's why we feel fear, love, anger, or ecstasy with disproportionate intensity in dreams. The visual cortex is also strongly activated, as if we were truly seeing with closed eyes. But the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic, critical thinking, and planning, goes quiet. This shutdown explains why we accept absurdities in dreams. Flying feels natural, talking to the dead doesn't surprise us, and impossible scenes become commonplace. Neuroscience suggests several functions for dreams, with some of the main ones being memory consolidation. The brain organizes the day's experiences, discarding the irrelevant and locking in the essential. Creative problem solving. By breaking from linear logic, the brain may find new connections, Many scientists and artists report having had transformative ideas during dreams. Emotional processing. Dreams may act as an emotional simulator where we revisit experiences, fears, and desires in symbolic form, seeking understanding and relief. Researcher Rosalind Cartwright referred to dreams as a kind of nighttime therapy. Neuroscientist Matthew Walker describes REM sleep as an emotional balm, where we relive pain in a softened form so we can wake up feeling lighter. But despite all the advances, science runs into a subtle and unsettling limit. Why do certain dreams mark us so deeply, as if carrying a personal message? Why can a simple dream encounter with a stranger move us for days? Why do we repeatedly dream of the same house, the same room, the same road, even though we've never been there? The neuroscientist can explain how the brain creates images, but not why those images touch us so deeply. The psychologist may suggest that dreams organize memory, but not why some dream imagery feels like it comes from something older or deeper. In this space between technical knowledge and the mystery of experience, the guiding question arises. Could dreams reveal more than just the workings of the brain? Could they reveal something about who we are, or even who we're still becoming? Biology offers the map, but perhaps the territory is the soul. What if dreams weren't just neurological reflections, but symbolic messages from a part of us we can't access while awake? For Swiss psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung, dreams are not random noises of a sleeping brain. They are a language, an ancient, universal language that speaks through symbols, metaphors, and archetypes. And the one who speaks this language is the unconscious, not just the personal unconscious, but also the collective unconscious, which spans cultures, eras, and the entirety of human history. While Freud saw dreams as expressions of repressed desires, hidden drives trying to surface, Jung went further. For him, the dream doesn't merely reveal what is hidden, it points to what needs to be integrated. A dream doesn't show us what we want, but what we need to see in order to become whole. In this dreamlike theater, the characters and settings carry deep symbolic meaning. Dreaming of mirrors, for instance, can represent a confrontation with one's self-image. Being chased may indicate an aspect of the self we try to avoid, a fear, a trauma, an unacknowledged truth. Oceans speak of the deep unconscious, of overwhelming emotions. Endless falls reveal the loss of control, the sensation of failing, or falling into oneself. Doors, caves, endless corridors, all symbolize access or blockage to internal parts of the self. Jung called these primordial images that appear in dreams archetypes. The hero, the shadow, the wise old man, the divine child, the inner feminine and masculine. All of these are symbolic forms that represent aspects of the self. When they show up in our dreams, it is not by chance. They are inviting us to reunite with what has been forgotten, repressed, or lost within. And there is one archetype in particular that carries a silent weight: the shadow. The shadow is everything we deny in ourselves: anger, selfishness, fear, jealousy, shame. In dreams, the shadow may appear as an enemy, a monster, a threatening figure, but it is not there to destroy us. It's there to be seen, recognized, embraced. The encounter with one's own shadow is a profound experience. It is the recognition that within us also lives what we deny in others, said Jung. Dreams, then, are invitations to this process of individuation, the path to becoming who we truly are by integrating the rejected and forgotten parts of the self. The self, or the true self, is not a fixed, unchanging entity. It is a continuous construction, a mosaic in transformation. And dreams are the pieces that, night after night, try to fit together. They don't come with ready-made answers. They come with images. They don't speak in words. They speak in symbols. They don't demand immediate understanding. They demand listening. In practice, this means paying attention to patterns. The repetition of certain symbols, the constant presence of particular characters or emotions. All of this can be interpreted not as prediction or fortune-telling, but as a clue to what is moving within. The dream is the voice of the unconscious, speaking a language the conscious mind still needs to relearn. More important than explaining a dream is feeling what it evokes. Does it disturb you? Comfort you? Challenge you? Maybe the dream where you get lost in an unknown city speaks to your current feeling of being directionless. Maybe the figure that always watches you from the shadows represents something within that needs to be confronted. Or maybe you just need to let the image act in silence until it says what it has to say in its own time. The beauty of dreams lies precisely in this. They do not follow rational logic. They are poetry in its rawest form, art created by a part of the soul that lives backstage. And when we accept this invitation, to look within without judgment, to welcome what emerges without censorship, we begin to approach the true self. A self that is not domesticated, that holds not only light, but also shadow, that is not static, but in motion, a self that speaks through dreams. Anyone who has dreamed of an entire lifetime in a single night knows, dreams play with time as if it were a veil easily torn. Inside them, there are no clocks. There is sensation. There is flow. There is eternity compressed into seconds. Have you ever woken up in a cold sweat after a dream in which years had passed, where you aged, loved, lost, rebuilt, and then opened your eyes to find that only 15 minutes had gone by? It's as if time, that pillar of our waking experience, completely dissolves when we sleep. Science has started to observe this phenomenon more closely through studies of lucid dreamers, people who are aware they are dreaming and, in some cases, can consciously interact within the dream. In carefully timed experiments, these dreamers were instructed to perform specific tasks while dreaming, such as counting to 10 or moving their eyes in distinct patterns. The result? The tasks took nearly the same amount of time in the dream as they would while awake. In other words, dream time can be as real as waking time or even more elastic. But if time in dreams can stretch, compress, or even reverse, what does that say about the self that experiences it? Philosophy has long wrestled with the concept of time. For St. Augustine, if no one asks me, I know what it is. But if someone asks me and I try to explain, I no longer know. For Henri Bergson, there is the time of clocks, chronological, mechanical, predictable, and there is the time of consciousness, the one that flows within us without exact measure, shaped by the intensity of experience. And it is in that inner time that dreams unfold. In dreams, the past can visit the future. The future can feel like a memory. We can become children again, or adults we have yet to become. We can relive the same moment endlessly, or forget entirely who we thought we were. Which brings us to a provocative question. If time is shaped by perception, who are we when perception is free? In dreams, our identity also becomes fluid. Have you noticed how, in some dreams, you're not exactly you? Sometimes you're an observer. Other times you're someone else, or multiple people, or no one at all. It's as if the self that manifests in dreams isn't bound to a biography. It doesn't need to follow your life's narrative, doesn't carry the same name, doesn't answer to the same limits. It's a self in expansion, multiple, symbolic, timeless. Maybe dreams remind us of this, that we are more than the sequence of our days. More than ID numbers, job titles, or social roles. More than what others say about us. Perhaps, when we dream, we access a state of liquid identity where what matters isn't who we are, but how we feel, how we flow, how we transform. And that brings us closer to an unsettling truth. The true self may not be fixed. Perhaps it's a process, a field of possibilities. And dreams, then, would be spaces for experimentation, where we live alternate versions of ourselves, where we test ways of being that don't fit in waking life. There we can fail without guilt, die and be reborn, cry for someone who doesn't exist, or love with a depth that reality sometimes doesn't allow. In dream time, the self breathes more deeply. And when we wake, even if logic resumes control, something within us remembers. That time, as we know it, is just a frame. And what's inside it, the picture we paint while we sleep, may hold truths that no clock could ever measure. Imagine your brain as a vast archive. Inside it, memories are stored, feelings are recorded, and pain is stacked, sometimes poorly organized. During the day, we deal with what is urgent. But at night, in the silence of sleep, the brain begins its most delicate work, processing what didn't fit into waking life. And dreams are a fundamental part of that invisible operation. Neuropsychologist Rosalind Cartwright, a pioneer in sleep and emotion studies, saw dreams as a kind of internal therapy. She noticed that people who dreamed about emotional events shortly after experiencing them, a loss, a breakup, a crisis, had a greater chance of emotional recovery. It was as if the brain used dreams to organize pain, not to erase it, but to integrate it. From a neurological standpoint, REM sleep is the stage where this psychic digestion occurs. During REM, the brain revisits emotionally charged experiences, but deactivates the release of norepinephrine, the stress hormone. This allows memories to be processed without reliving the trauma in a raw, overwhelming way. It's a safe way to feel, to remember, to reframe. It's as if the dream says, "You can look at this now with more distance." Neuroscientist Matthew Walker, in his book, Why We Sleep, goes even further. He states that dreaming is essential for emotional balance. According to his research, lack of REM sleep is directly associated with disorders such as anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. But dreaming doesn't always bring immediate relief. Recurring dreams, for example, often signal that something unresolved lives within us. A nameless anguish, an unlived desire, a trauma that keeps returning, even disguised in different narratives. And nightmares, as uncomfortable as they are, serve a powerful purpose, to show us where it hurts. In dreams, the brain doesn't lie. Emotions emerge in raw, direct, symbolic form. In real life, we learn to disguise, to smile with a broken heart, to ignore what eats at us. But in dreams, there are no masks. Are you angry? There may be a fire. Feeling powerless? Maybe a maze with no way out. Grieving? You might relive farewells. The dream turns emotions into images. And those images, even when absurd, carry truths that the conscious mind hasn't yet learned to name. That's why a single dream can move us more than 1,000 words. It can make us cry without knowing exactly why. It can slowly free us from a pain we didn't even know we were carrying. And then, a quiet revelation appears. What haunts us in dreams is often what needs to be recognized and integrated into our waking self, not to destroy us, but to complete us. Each emotion felt in a dream, no matter how disconnected or strange it seems, is an attempt by the unconscious to communicate with consciousness. It's a call to listen, a gesture of healing, and if we learn to observe our dreams with care, we may see in them not just echoes of the past, but clues for how to move through the present. Maybe the dream won't solve everything, but it points to where the knot is. And sometimes that alone is enough to begin to untie it. In front of a mirror, we see our face, symmetrical or not, familiar, known. But what if there were a mirror that reflected what's inside? That showed us our hidden parts, our fragments, the things we've forgotten? That mirror exists. It appears every night, and it's called a dream. In dreams, we are not just ourselves. We are the other, the child, the stranger, the pursuer, the lover, the enemy. Have you ever noticed how, in some dreams, your perspective shifts? One moment you're yourself, the next you're watching from outside, or you've become someone completely different. That multiplicity isn't a flaw, it's a revelation. The self in dreams is plural, mutable, fragmented. And this isn't a sign of imbalance, but of depth. As Jung said, the psyche is not a straight line, but a mandala in constant expansion. Within us live many voices, many characters, and in dreams they take form. The figure chasing you may be your repressed anger. The mysterious mentor may be your inner wisdom trying to surface. The frightened child may be your past asking for comfort. The wild animal may be your instinctive vitality seeking space. These characters are not random. They are expressions of parts of the self, that broader, truer entity that includes all our facets, even those we deny. To dream, then, is to walk through a labyrinth of mirrors. And in each reflection, we find a piece of who we are. The mirror metaphor is powerful because it reminds us that the dream doesn't invent truths. It reflects what is already within us, even if invisible. And often, what's hidden isn't something ugly or unwanted, but something silenced by fear, by trauma, or by convenience. Dreams show us, without mercy or censorship, what still needs to be seen. And more than that, they take us on journeys. Symbolic stories that echo the oldest myths of humanity. In many of these dreams, we are led to confront obstacles, cross dangers, meet allies, decode messages. This is no accident. It's what Jung called the journey of the inner hero, a psychic crossing in search of wholeness. In that journey, every dream challenge represents a stage of our inner maturation. And every character we meet is, in truth, a part of ourselves asking to be integrated. That's why there is immense beauty in lucid dreams, those in which we realize we are dreaming. They are not just curious experiences or tools for fun. They are portals of direct communication with the unconscious. In a lucid dream, we can ask a dream figure, "Who are you?" And sometimes hear, "I'm your sadness," or "I'm your fear of being free," or even, "I'm the part of you that already knew." Lucidity, in this case, is not control. It is listening. It's as if the veil between the waking self and the deeper self becomes thin, translucent. And for one rare instant, we speak with the most intimate and most truthful part of ourselves. In this way, the dream stops being a passive event and becomes a dialogue with the self, a place where what's broken can begin to mend, where what's hidden can come forward, where what's awake can finally be seen. Because the true self is not a mask we wear during the day. It is the living sum of everything we've been, everything we are, and everything we may yet become. And dreams, with their symbolic language, are the most honest, and at times most brutal, mirror we have. But above all, they are an invitation to dive in, to integrate, to awaken. Is there a limit to what we call the self? During the day, we define ourselves by a name, a story, a body, a linear narrative. But what if the self is only the surface, the visible portion of something much deeper, perhaps even infinite? Contemporary neuroscience is beginning to touch the edge of this mystery. In studying lucid dreaming, scientists have found that even in deep sleep, there are moments when the individual remains fully aware of dreaming and is able to manipulate the storyline, interact with symbols, and make deliberate choices within the dream world. But who is this observer that stays awake inside the dream? Is it the same self that wakes up in the morning and brushes its teeth? Or is it a greater self, an aspect of consciousness that observes the experience but is not defined by it? This question brings us close to the boldest theories of consciousness. One such theory, integrated information theory, IIT, proposed by Giulio Tononi, suggests that consciousness is not located in a specific region of the brain but rather emerges from the integration of information across complex neural systems. In other words, consciousness is like a symphony. It's not the sound of a single instrument, but the harmony of the whole ensemble. But what if that symphony continues to play even when the traditional instruments, wakefulness, senses, the body, fall silent? Some schools of thought, like panpsychism, propose something even more radical, that consciousness is a fundamental property of the universe, just like space, time, or matter. This would mean that consciousness doesn't emerge from the brain. The brain simply tunes into it, like a radio picking up a signal. In this view, dreams might be more than mental constructions. They might be temporary portals into subtle dimensions of consciousness, transitional zones between the personal and the universal, between the individual self and the cosmic ocean from which we all emerge. If that's true, then the true self is not confined to the brain, nor to biography, nor to physical form. It is like a flame burning within a larger field, a spark of awareness that observes, feels, learns through many states and layers. What if the self that dreams is greater than the self that wakes? That question echoes like a suspended note, resonating far beyond science, reaching into spiritual, philosophical, and mystical traditions. In deep meditation, near-death experiences, out-of-body journeys, and even the most lucid dreams, we find a common thread: the sense of existing beyond time and form, of being pure awareness, free from the habitual identity. And maybe that's exactly what dreams offer us in nightly doses, a subtle reminder that we are not only what we believe ourselves to be. The ego, with its routines and roles, falls asleep, but the being remains awake. And it observes, it learns, it reveals. In dreams, we find clues, fragments of a self that cannot be contained in words or in the limits of flesh. A self that pulses through the language of symbols, archetypes, and raw emotion. A self that doesn't need to be explained, only felt. And so, with each passing night, with each dream that reveals itself, perhaps we are being slowly reminded, not merely that we are brains that dream, but that we are consciousness waking up. When we sleep, where do we really go? We began this journey with a question, simple in form, but profound in its layers. And perhaps now, after traveling through science, symbolism, and the soul, we are ready to understand that dreams are not just nighttime wanderings. They are coded messages from our essence. During the day, we play roles. We are professionals, children, parents, friends, citizens. While awake, we wear masks, follow rules, respond to a world that demands quick answers and practical decisions. But at night, when everything quiets down, something opens. In the absence of control, the true self begins to emerge. And it doesn't shout, it whispers. Dreams don't speak in clear sentences. They speak in sensations, images, symbols, presences. And each one carries something that you, only you, can decode. Because dreams are letters written by you to you. And sometimes, we ignore those letters for an entire lifetime. But what if we started listening? What if, instead of discarding dreams as random noise, we began to treat them for what they are, echoes from parts of our being longing to be expressed? Perhaps we discover that the true self isn't found in any biography, nor in any label. It lives in the margins, in the quiet moments, in the symbols that repeat, in the emotion that lingers after waking. And that dreams, far from being fantasies, are compasses. They point to where it hurts, where something's missing, where something still pulses. They reveal what's in conflict and what is ready to bloom. So the next time you wake from a strange, intense, or revealing dream, don't dismiss it. Write it down. Reflect. Ask yourself, what part of me is trying to speak? Because maybe dreams don't reveal another world. Maybe they reveal you. And that is the strangest and most beautiful thing of all.